Okay, fine.
Okay. Okay, fine. That's nice to hear. All right. So, by way of continuation, let me speak about the first requirement briefly and how we analyzed it in the last class. So I'll appreciate it if you guys can mute, if you can mute your mic so that we'll not have any background interference. So if you have any question, just raise your hands and I would give you the floor to speak. All right, thank you. You guys are both muted. So in the last diet or the last requirement, we looked at the value chain of the business based on the examiner's request. So like I said, and I repeat verbatim, and I stress that point very, very expressly. The examiner is very keen on you sticking with his requirements. So a lot of people are used to requirement 1 as financial analysis, but you can see in this exam, he decided to change it to data analysis and presented a model in requirement 1. So there is not much you could do on financial analysis in requirement 1. So please take note and read the examiner's requirement very, 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 very keenly. Read it keenly and adhere to his instruction expressly. So those that always stick to the issue of financial statement analysis in requirement 1 may get confused, especially in this area. So please stick to the examiner's requirement. He said an analysis of the value chain of the business, the operational strength and weakness as shown. So he didn't say anything about financial analysis. So in your requirement 1, you may just speak about that because requirement 1 has to do with data and information. Sorry, your parameter 1 in your report format, just like it is here in the structure. So in data and information, where you have data analysis, you can just talk about the financial statements briefly to pick your 4 marks. Talking about the financial statements, then when you are employing your professional tools, analytical skills, you talk about the model expressly down to the 6th parameter or the 6th layer. This is very important. So take note, any requirement he could present financial data or model analysis or financial statement analysis. So if it comes in requirement 2 or requirement 1, any way it is, stick to the examiner's requirement. So I needed to stress that for us to take notes. Okay, so without wasting much of our time, let's rush deeply into requirement 2. Requirement 2 says an analysis of the financial situation of Ice Age Manufacturing Limited. Your analysis should take into consideration all the concerns raised by Michael Jelili in his email, which is Exhibit 2. You are also expected to advise on the possible sources of obtaining financing, open to the client, giving your views on the most appropriate with reasons for or against each source of finance. So you can see that this requirement has a lot in it. Number 1, analyze the financial situation. Okay, everything that has to do with your ratio analysis, trend analysis, industry analysis. The second one is to say you should take into consideration all the concerns raised by Michael Jelili. That's 2. That's the second thing you should address. So there are a lot of things raised in Exhibit 2. Look at it. Then 3, you are to advise on possible sources of finance open to Ice Age. That's number 3 you are to address. Then you are to address the merits and demerits of those financing options you have identified for the client. So you see you have 4 duties and responsibilities here. Analysis of the financial situation 1, analysis of the concerns raised by the finance director Michael Jelili, then also advice on the possible sources of finance 3, then you are also to provide advantages and disadvantages of those financing options you've raised. So take note of that, very important. You have 4 things to address in this second requirement. Okay, so I've changed my screen now. I'm sharing the appendices and how we should deal with it. So in this exam or in this requirement, you see that it has little to do with a lot of ratio analysis. Now from the question, you will see from the exhibits. If you go to the exhibits, you will see that in exhibit 6, you will see that in exhibit 6, pardon me, let me welcome another person. Okay, so you're welcome, Yusuf, to the call. All right, so in exhibit 6, you will see that there is a presentation of just 7 ratios. So ACAs, take note of that. You have just 7 ratios based on the industry information, the industry mean ratios. So based on this exhibit, what is it telling you? It's telling you that restrict yourself to these 8 ratios only. Take note of it. Restrict yourself to these ratios only. You don't have time. So by the time an ACA continues to broaden ratio calculation, you just end up wasting your time and earning no marks. So when you say industry information, industry mean ratios, just take note of that in the exhibits, and likely to come in the unseen, not in the pre-seen. So in the unseen, when you are given a set of industry information, stick to those ratios and don't calculate any other thing, and just speak to those ratios. Very important. Take note of that. Okay, so I've gone back to the computation of the ratios, and you can see based on the industry information, I calculated ratios only based on that. That is how to be smart and use your time efficiently in the case study exams. So don't calculate ratios you are not asked to, except where an industry information is not provided. You can go ahead and, based on your discretion, calculate your ratios. So you can see based on the industry information, there is an industry average for return on equity. So I calculated return on equity, and the return on equity for 2024 is 0.46%. For 2023 is 1.09%. So on the trend analysis, I also did a trend between 2004 2003, and the formula is new minus old minus new all over new. That's how you get your change. Take note of that. Old minus new all over new. So when you are doing your calculation or your practice, please rewind this recording and listen to it again. The formula is old minus new all over new. So calculating 2014 minus 2024 minus 2023 all over 2023 will give you the change. So you can see the change between the current year and the previous year is negative. And negative, and the industry average is positive. Now, what is the industry average talking about? It's talking about other firms within the manufacturing business space. I'll take that again. Industry average means other firms or competitors in that industry space. Ice Age Manufacturing is under manufacturing industries business space. So other businesses, and the average mean or industry average provides 7.10%. But you can see Ice Age is doing lower than that. That means there's a problem. Their revenue is not enough. Their profit is not enough to cater for the equity provision or the shareholders fund. So take note of that. The industry average is more than what the our business that we're analyzing is doing. So in 2024, 0.46. In 2023, 1.04. It's not even up to the average of 7.10 industry mean. So take note of that. For gross profit margin, you can see that 30% in 2024, 32% in 2023. The change is negative. Why? Because it's 6.25. But the industry average is over 43%. That means Ice Age is not doing very well in this business space. The net profit margin in 2024 is 0.87, showing a further drop from 2023, which was 2.61, a negative change by 66.7%. So you can see the industry average is 9.6. They are still not doing well. The current ratio in 2024 is 1.17, dropped. It was a drop from 2023, which was 2.84. And the industry mean is 1.9. The industry mean is 1.9. So you can see that they did well in 2023 above the industry mean, but dropped in 2024 below the industry mean. So take note of that when you are writing. Take note of that. While inventory turnover period, the industry mean is 62 days. That's just 2 months. Inventory turnover means the amount of time they use to sell their inventory or convert inventory to cash. You can see they are doing 118 days. 118 days is equivalent to almost 4 months. 4 months is 120 days. 2003, the same thing, 122 days. So they are doing very bad in the industry, within the industry. Payable turnover, the amount of time they used to pay for supplies. So you can see I did a calculation for payable turnover, cost of sales, and payable turnover purchases based on the information provided from the exhibits and also additional information. You see that there's cost of sales and there's purchases in the exhibits. That's why I did calculation for 2. So they didn't provide industry average for purchases, but they provided industry average for cost of sales, which is 50. But Ice Age is still doing bad, 69, in fact, approximately 70, and also 279 in both years, indicating the company is very, very far from competing with her peers in the industry. Then for payable turnover, based on purchases, you see that it's 260 and 89. So if you even say, let's use 50 days as the industry mean, you'll see that they are still not meeting up. Gearing ratio, the industry average is 30%. In 2023, they did 63%, and in 2024, they did 60%. You can see that the company is far from the industry mean. So there's an issue with the company. All right, so these key performance indicators are just copy and paste figures from the financial statements. I just picked the key performance indicator from net income, equity from the financials, gross profit. So those are the key performance indicators for the company that we use to measure the change. And you can see in most of the change, just gross profit is positive, revenue is positive, current asset is positive, current liabilities is positive. We have long-term debt and capital employed and operating profit as negative, plus net income negative. So this change you are calculating is to see how they fared between a year, the previous year, and the current year. You want to see the change between the old minus the new, all over the new. Take note of that, please. Okay, so I just put a key here for the abbreviations. You are allowed to abbreviate in the ICANN exam. And if you don't have time, don't put the key. The examiner understands the key. If you have time, you can put the key, but you are not teaching the examiner. This key is just for tutorial purposes. Okay, so let's move to exhibit appendix 3. You see that from the exhibits, there is something raised there about investment property. Investment property. So if you look at the exhibit from note 5, you see that investment property was 7.5 million. 7.5 million. Take note of that. Now go back to the exhibit again. You see what the finance director said. I'm scrolling back to the exhibit. You need to hear what the finance director said in exhibit 2 in the pre-scene. So let me scroll back to the exhibit so that you can understand what the finance director said. Now, the finance director said something here. He said, Ice Age Manufacturing, talking about financing on exhibit 2. Yeah, so on exhibit 2, you will see what the finance director said. He said, Ice Age Manufacturing Limited recently issued 6% corporate notes at par value of 8 million naira. They were issuing cost of 500,000. I made a decision to charge contractual rate of 6% as finance cost to the income statement because I think it's the logical thing to do. Now, his thinking is the logical thing to do. In financial reporting and corporate reporting, you don't think, you even if you want to apply your judgment, it has to be based on a standard, IFRSs or IASs. So he said he thinks it's a contractual thing or logical thing to do because they are in dire need of finance and cannot afford to raise additional finance at this time. So take note of that. The par value is 8 million and the issuing cost is 500,000 of those loan notes. So let's go back to the unseen so that you can see the additional information provided for that unseen for that pre-seen information. So investment property in note 5 states that is 7.5 million for 2024 and 2023 respectively. But based on the finance director's opinion or his discussion on that exhibit, it did not state the particular year, so we assume is the current year 2024. So we have the investment property accounted for under the fair value model of IAS 40 investment property. Now you see that the investment property had deteriorated or impaired, has been impaired by 30%, but this has not been reflected in the financial statements, as management is of the view that the fall in value is only temporary and it's expected to reverse in the next accounting period. So based on IAS 36, impairment of assets, you are supposed to recognize impairment on a yearly basis. So this assumption that the fair value is only temporary and it will reverse in the next accounting period is not tenable, doesn't hold water. So it must be recognized. Take note of that. And that is why when we came here, we look at the cash flow, which is 7.5. Then the opening balance is the same 7.5 million. Then we discounted that 500,000 from the 7.5 million, which we have the carrying amount, the balance of 7 million. Then he said the interest expense is 8%. We now charge 8% of 7 million and we have 560,000. Now, if you look at the financial statement, you see that the interest paid was 480. So there was an understatement of the interest paid. So we are supposed to add the difference between 560 and 480, which is 80, to the opening balance and the actual amount of the property. So the property is 7.5 million on the financial statements. So the difference between 560 and 480 is what we'll add to our revalued amount, which is 80. So you can see the difference between 560,000 and 480,000, which was how much was on the financial statement, is 80. So the closing balance from 2024 will now be 7,580,000, the revalued amount of the investment property, the cost. So take note of that. Now that's based on IAS 39, financial liability. IAS 39 is financial instruments. Now, based on the investment property recognition of impairment, like I said, 30% of the impairment of this 7.5 million is 2,250,000. So the closing balance of the investment property is 5,250,000. They didn't recognize in the financial statement, but based on IAS 40, you need to recognize the impairment of that asset, as it said in this exhibit. What exhibit is this now? I think that's exhibit 4. All right, so this note is exhibit 4. So take note of just little adjustments because they could cause audit issues. All right, so let's move. Now, in appendix 4, we did a calculation here. Let me quickly explain something to you about this calculation. If you go to exhibit 5, you will see that ICE Aid Manufacturing or Production Department procured raw materials. So the unit the production used is 20,000 and the unit they use in 2023 is 21,800. But the demand for 2024 is 18.7 and 2023 is 19.6. Now the cost of these materials, the standard cost is 190 naira per this unit. In 2023 is 195. So there was a drop in the cost. But you see, the actual cost was reduced to 171.5 in 2024 and 176.00 in 2023. Now, the actual cost is what they purchased, but the standard cost is the industry or the price you are supposed to get it in the market based on the quality. So if we want to calculate the actual production based on material price variance, I want to take you back to our performance management or your management accounting. It's simple. Don't get confused. Just look at it very, very logically. And you know the reason why the actual cost is lower than the standard cost. Now, let's go back to the solution. The formula is very easy. Don't get confused or say, we are back to material cost variance, this variance issue in management accounting, blah, blah, blah. I don't like it. It's a simple logical thing. Just look at it this way. The material price variance is actual production times actual price minus standard price. So the actual price is how much you got it, but the standard price is the price it is in the market for a qualitative and a quality material. So if the actual price is higher, it shows that the standard price must have gone up without a recognition in the budget of the company. But if it is lower, then it's either there's substandard quality or they got very, very good discount. It's one of the two reasons for that. Okay, so now the actual production in units is 21,000 for 2023. The standard price is 176 naira per unit. But they got it for, okay, the actual price they got it is 176 per unit. But the standard price in the market is supposed to be 195 naira per unit. Now, what is the difference between the standard price and the actual price? Is 19 naira. So they got 19 naira discount. Why did they get that discount? It is assumed or based on the information provided by the finance director. And I will give you the reason. Let's go back to the exhibit before we come back to the solution. Let me give you the reason why I think, or from the exhibit, it is suggested they got a lower price for that. So let's go back to exhibit 2 and you look at the reason so that you can speak about it. So under exhibit 2, you go to production. Let's go to production. You can see from my screen production. You will see that he said in the second paragraph, I have attached some production information for your use and will be happy to provide more information should you require. As you would notice, our material price variance has improved. Did you hear what the finance director is saying? But it is mainly because we were able to get other smaller suppliers to sell some raw materials needed at a bargain price. This quality was not as good, and one is not sure if it meets the required certification standard. ACAs, take note of that. So you can see they went to buy substandard raw materials, which is an ethical issue. But it should do for the time being since our customers are not complaining yet. So based on certification standard, either ISO or SON, SONS, these raw materials are not up to standard. So fine, they were able to cut costs, but they are going to provide substandard quality to the market and to customers. What will it lead to? Reputational risk. It will lead to substandard product that may not last. So there are a lot of issues surrounding this positive variance that they were able to report. So take note of it. Now let's go back to the variance. So if you calculate 21,800 times this, they had a variance of 414,200, favorable. But even though the variance is favorable, there is an issue with this variance, this material price or quality arrival. It's favorable for the management accounts, but it's not favorable for the business. It's not favorable for the market. You can't provide substandard goods. It's like providing contraband. The raw materials you use to arrive at the finished goods is not standard enough. So take note of the calculation here. Now, the same thing for 2024. The standard price is supposed to be 190 for certified standard, but they got it at 171, saving 18 naira 50 kobo. So if they say 18 naira 50 kobo times 21,000, you can see they got a favorable variance or reduction in cost by 370 in 2024. So I hope you understand the material price variance. It's very easy and graphical here. But based on this, his cost savings, you cannot jeopardize quality. So the first thing you consider as an accountant, especially me, I do a lot of procurement audit here. So the first thing we do is it quality? The vendors we are getting, are they qualitative vendors? And the product they want to sell to us, is it quality? So the first thing we do, the first check is for quality. Then the second is cost savings. So you don't put cost savings before quality. If you say cost savings and the quality is substandard, you have an issue. So please take note of that ACAs as you arrive or as you tackle any question, and also in your area of practice in the office. Take note of that. Okay, so having said that, we've spoken about the variance which you calculate to just get a few marks here. Okay, so let's go to the requirement and address the requirement one by one. Let's address the requirement one by one. Okay, so having looked at the appendices and the calculations based on the ratios, the first said analysis of the financial situation of ICE. Your analysis should take into consideration all the concerns raised by Michael Jelili in Exhibit 2. You are also expected to advise on possible sources of obtaining finance open to the client, giving your views on the most appropriate with reasons for or against the source of finance. So you have 4 issues to talk about. Okay, so let me, by reminder, show us our format that we use to prepare our report. So as we practice, we should take note of this format. All right, so the first thing we want to discuss is data and information, and the data and information can be picked from the financial statements or the analysis, data analysis statement. So in this situation of ICE age, we just use the financial statements to pick 4 marks from there. Then for professional tools, we'll now analyze ratios and talk about 4 good parameters on the ratios that are relevant to the case. There are plenty, but we'll just take 4 based on the industry mean or industry average provided for us. Then the analytical skills we want to display, we'll display the trend analysis for some ratios, 4 good ones, to see the trend between the 2 years and how the company has fared. Then for the 4th discussion, we'll look at challenges and considerations of the company within 2024 and 2025. Then we look at ethical issues. We'll talk about 4. Then we'll look at some risks, positive or negative, and we'll judge based on the information. Then we'll conclude and we'll make our recommendation for 4. Okay, so having said that, let me move back to the structure of the report. So in preparing your requirement 2, please don't start requirement 2 in the continuation of requirement 1. So when you start requirement 1, start it on a fresh page. Take note of that, ECAs. Then when you start requirement 2, you start it also on a fresh page. Please take note of that. It's very important. Okay, so let's analyze the financial statement like we did in the first parameter and in the first requirement. So in requirement 1, we analyze the financial statement for this first layer. So in requirement 2, we also analyze the financial statement. So there are many things to analyze. Remember, you've been provided with so many financial statements. Number 1, if you look at Exhibit 3, you have the statement of comprehensive income, which is your profit and loss or the income statement 1. You're also given your SFP, which is the traditional balance sheet too. You're also giving statement of changes in equity, which the examiner rarely gives. This is one of the examiners he has provided a statement of changes equity, which is saucy. He also gave you a lot in the unseen, which is notes to the account and production information. The only thing he didn't give here is cash flow statements. So take note that the financial statement he provided is almost complete. Take note of that. All right, so speaking about the financials, in the requirement 1, we talked about the income statement and the balance sheet in the analysis of financial statement. So any financial statement you talk about and you're able to explain to get your 4 marks, please go ahead. There's no hard and fast rule. Go ahead and talk about it. So I just decided to talk about the statement of changes in equity for the 2 years. So by way of discussion, to pick 1 mark, I talked about the statement of changes in equity and the share premium. So you are just in descriptive form describing what is in the financial statement. That's all. And that is what this layer is all about. You can talk about the data and information without making any necessary calculations. You just explain how it went up in the previous year and in the current year to pick 1 mark. I also linked them to the notes. Look at the second point I raised, and I said note 7 and note 8 provide details of the details that complement the statement of changes in equity. Talking about note 7, ordinary share remain constant by 20 million, representing 20 million shares at 1 naira each. You just speak to the numbers, resulting in an effective interest rate of 8%. So you'll just speak to the numbers and explain to the person reading or the client reading your financial information if he doesn't understand or may not understand financial statements. So this financial liability does not affect the statement of changes in equity directly, but changes the overall financial position and cost structure of the company. So you're just explaining it in words so that somebody that doesn't have financial background can understand what you are saying. So the second part, to pick another point, we talked about note 1 and 4, provide detailed components of the statement of profit or loss. Note that the revenue increased in 2024 by this amount. In 2023, it was this amount. Note 2 also talked about cost of sales totaling this amount. So you are speaking and complementing the note components to the financial statement to pick your mark. Then the third point is for notes 5 and 6, the SFP. We are talking about the notes and the adjustment of the 30% drop in the investment property, which you didn't talk about in the first analysis in requirement 1. You have picked 1 mark there. Then Ice Age also recently issued loan notes of 8 million at this price, and you talked about the decision to charge 6% as contractual interest or finance cost. The choice is by the finance director, and you also state that this situation underscores the company's financial strain and highlights the need for careful management. You pick 1 mark. And I gave you another point on navigating the challenging business environment marked by production difficulties as stated in Exhibit 2, reliance on the problematic supplier. We are just using data and information to speak. The company faces staffing issues. We also talk about lack of inventory or revenue system further complicates operations, and you talk about the employee turnover rate, reduction in reduced investment in staff training, and strained customer relationships. So you're just speaking to the data, explaining what are the issues and what you observe to pick 4 marks from the analysis of the financial information. So you are not necessarily replicating what is in the first requirement in your analysis. So you are doing another thing to say, okay, you are speaking differently to what you've noticed between the notes and the financial statements. Take note of that. Okay, so let's analyze the ratios and the trends in the financial information and the ratio analysis. So we talk about the revenue as it was used in the calculation of the ratio. So let me go to the exhibits And let's look at the ratios calculated. So based on this exhibit, you see that revenue was used to calculate the denominator of gross profit and net profit. So based on the revenue parameter, we could use that bottom line to talk about the second layer in our report. So you can see the percentage drop between 2023 and 2024. Sorry, percentage increase in 2023 and between 2023 and 2024. You speak about the positive trend. The increase in gross profit also speaks to the gross profit margin, which declined from 32 to 30%. You speak to that. You pick one mark for each. And you also talk about inventory increasing in both years and the percentage. You can see how it raises concern of potential overstocking and what it leads to. You speak to that, pick one mark. Then you talked about profit before tax, pre-tax profit and post-tax profit, how this affects the financials. The decline indicates significant reduction in profitability, and it affects operational performance, overall performance. So you've spoken to 4, and there are others to talk about. So please be conscious of your 4 marks and move. Just speak to the numbers, quote them, quote the appendix and move. So I also added the issue of liquidity, where you see a reflection of cash and short-term equivalent deteriorating from 2.3 million in 2023 to just 40,000 in 2024. An absolute drop of 2.26 million, which is over 98%. Something must be wrong. It's a big challenge they are facing in operations. So take note of that. And the next one is the viable source of financing. Now, you could finance through 2 sources. Number 1, equity or debt. So the viable sources of financing, you are now addressing the other part of the requirement in this analysis, where the company could raise capital internally, but the ownership will be diluted because through right issue and bonus issue, they will dilute their ownership. Other people or external investors, shareholders will come in to buy. So the current shareholders may lose their shareholding. Also, they could look for a long-term loan. So you are now speaking to the alternative sources of financing, which the examiner asks you to look at. So potentially, if you have a lower interest to get debt to address immediate cash flow needs, then it's fine. Anything factoring or invoice discounting could also provide short-term relief by converting your receivables into immediate cash. So another way of financing they could explore is government grants or subsidies, particularly if the company qualifies for support due to its production challenges, could provide also non-payable funds to stabilize operations. So there are 3 sources of financing here the company could explore. Internal financing, which is equity, external financing, which is debt, and also government grants. So take note of that. You just stated that here, but you've not talked about the merits or the demerits, and we'll look at that in detail. Okay, so the third parameter we want to pick 4 points now is our trend analysis, which is our analytical skills. But you're not going to write analytical skills here. You are not examining the examiner. Examiner is the one examining you. So in trend, we look at also the revenue. You see, revenue is a very powerful KPI, a key performance indicator that you can use it in any layer out of the 6 to speak. You can use it in any layer out of the 6 you have to speak. So revenue is a powerful KPI. You can see we are using it here in the trend, talking about the increase. So we said the growth reflects the company's resilience to and ability to generate higher sales, even in challenging business environment. So you are analyzing what the company did. The second area is that the company experienced mixed trend in the financial performance. On one hand, the company saw an absolute increase in key figures such as revenue, which grew by this percentage. Gross profit rose also by this percentage. But the current assets also increased by this percentage, reflecting better asset management. You also see that the company faced significant percentage decrease in critical areas at net profit margin. You see that it dropped by 66%, if not 67 approximately, and operating profit which fell by 23.05. So these challenges, you are speaking to them based on your trend analysis in your appendix 2. We have picked 2 points. Then the third point we want to pick is about payables, receivables, and inventory, which is our current assets. And it's very important we understand that these 3 operating cash operating cycle, which has to do with your receivables, inventory, and payables, must be taken into cognizance, especially when you are calculating your cash operating cycle. Take note of that. Inventory, your receivables, and your payables. You will see that from Ice Age Manufacturing's operation, the increased reliance on supplier credit, while receivables increased in the current year above the previous year, inventory holding too increased above the previous year in the current year, are all challenges of working capital management, because your current asset minus your current liabilities is your working capital you use to run short-term obligations of the company. So you can see from Ice Age that they have working capital or current asset issues. So this challenge poses potential cash flow pressures and a need for improved working capital management. So that's part of your analysis. You pick another point by talking about profit after tax, how it dropped by 57% from 223,000 in 2023. It dropped to 95 by 57%. Very disturbing. This decrease underscores that the company should restore profitability to improve the financial health of the company. So you have spoken about 4. Now I added one on the sources of finance, saying that options include issuing new capital, that's equity financing we just spoke about, though it may dilute existing shareholder stake. And another viable option is existing debt to reduce interest rates and extend repayment period. But additionally, IEML might consider leveraging trade credit or improve cash flow management to free up internal funds. So you are also speaking to the sources of credit the company could explore available to them. So we've talked about 4 points in this third layer, which we are expressing our analytical skills. So the stratification and delineation of our report is very important. It will help you earn marks easily than just writing straight stories. Fine, your examiner may look at what you've written without proper structure, headers and subheaders. But to get your marks comfortably, please structure your report like this. If you are using numbers first, the next one should be alphabets. So if your substructure or your subheaders is used in alphabets, the next one should be Roman numeral. You see, this neatness in report presentation and a flow based on headers and subheaders will make the examiner love your report and help you ace the exams with ease. So please take note of structure. These are the techniques that will help you impress the examiner. Don't just write blankly and be shooting sporadically. When a farmer goes to the bush, he aims at the animal he wants to kill, to carry home. Or if he goes to the bush and starts shooting blank bullets, he'll just waste his bullets and end up going home without a kill. So please take note of it. These structures will help you, and that is why the mock exams, we need to take note of it. And I'm not happy to some extent if you are not attempting it. That's the only way you could know your mistake. ACA Mohammed said something before we started the class. He said he wanted to call me to ask me one question, but he said, it's mock exam. It's better to make mistake in the mock exam than to make mistake in the actual exam. One of the good things that helped me in the case study when I was practicing, I was able to ace it at first attempt, was they were giving us weekly mock exams like this. I registered with Platinum Gold Solution in Lagos. So every week you get mock exam and you practice and you submit aside your practice, your private studies. So it helped us solve this question under exam condition. So if you are not attempting it, I'm seriously not happy with you. I may not force you, but this is the only way you could know your mistake. You see, as we're talking in the last requirement, ACA Mohammed said something. He said, I've seen where I made a mistake. He was already confessing. You see, it's very tragic for us to pay that kind of money for ICANN, and you go and be discovering the mistake after the exams. It's a very, very tragic thing. So please, from the next mock 3, no matter how busy you are, please take this mock very seriously. It will help fine-tune your structure. It will help fine-tune your writing. It will help you know where your mistakes are. So please sacrificially ensure that you answer and attempt these mock exams. We're going to the third one by the weekend. And before the pre-sync come out, we should be able to answer 3 more, because in September, we'll do 2 mock exams. In October, we'll do 2 mock exams. Then in November, your pre-sync will come out. So we have 4 more mocks to write. And I'm committed. I'm very, very busy in the office, but I'm committed to seeing that you practice and practice. And I want to start marking and be seeing people score above 50. I'll be very happy. You see, there's no 2 ways to passing the case study exam. It's just practice. Once you practice it, amen, and you are prayerful, you will just see that with help and with what you have already practiced, you will ace the exam, inshallah. So please take note of it. Looking at the trend analysis, let me continue. Looking at the trend analysis, we've spoken to 4 vital areas. So once you've spoken to 4, if you have any additional one, you can just add it so that the examiner can pick your best 4 and give you the 4 marks. So 4 valid points gives you superior achievement. 3 valid points, competent achievement. 2 valid points is below competent achievement. Then 1 is no competent achievement. Then 0, none is void. So take note of that. So you should give 4 good points under each parameter. So let's look at the challenges and the consideration, what to consider. Speaking to, based on our format, we are speaking to issues and options. So you can call it another acronym. That's why I call it the challenges ICE Age is facing. So looking at the profit, you see that it dropped despite increase in revenue. So this is a challenge. This trend, looking at the profit, if you look at gross profit margin, you should look at the liquidity ratios dropping based on the industry average. The activity ratios show extended inventory turnover, increased payables turnover. Also, even the receivables increased. You see that this trend underscore financial pressure by ICE Age, influenced by operational difficulties and rising cost. So you can quote Appendix 2. So that's the first challenge they have. Looking at these ratios, you pick 1 mark. Then compared to the industry average, the second point, you see that ICE Age displays mixed financial performance. The ROE, return on equity, dropped, and the industry average is 7.10, but the 2024 figure is 0.4. So you speak about that. Okay, I think somebody's hand is raised. ACA Mohammed wants to cut my thoughts. Okay, I think I'll have to answer ACA. All right, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Please, I don't want you to go far, so I should not escape from me. These challenges. You have had the challenges.
Yes.
Yes, challenges and other considerations.
Yes.
Please, instead of me using challenges and consideration, please, I'm just looking at it. It's like me using challenges and consideration. It's like I will not. It's like it's not enough for me to draw the attention of the examiner.
Okay.
If, for example, I'm using, or for instance, I use financial challenges and consideration. Is it okay for me to, for example, I'm just citing an example, if possible for me to use financial challenges instead of me just using challenges and consideration?
Fantastic question. Thank you very much, ACA Mohammed, for that question. Thank you. Thank you. I like that. Okay, so you see these acronyms are proposed, self-promulgated. This is my own way of expressing what I understand in the course. Like I said earlier or in previous courses, there is no right or wrong answer. So if you say financial challenges, in fact, you've spoken clearer to the examiner, which I like. Now, why did I use challenges and consideration for myself? Is because there's requirement 1 and requirement 2. So the fourth parameter is challenges and consideration. So in requirement 2, the challenge may not be financial. It may be data. The data in the challenges may be a model issue. So I use challenges and consideration in my own understanding. So you see, ACA, for you to come up with financial challenges shows that you are very creative and you understand the requirement. So based on this requirement, for you to say financial challenges, you are excellently correct. Thank you for that. Fantastic. You can decide not to even say financial challenges. You can decide to say financial issues or problems faced by Ice Age. Anything that speaks to this analysis you are making, please use that header. Don't copy this, my report. You see, there are many ways to the market in this case study. The point the examiner is saying is just provide headers and subheaders. That's all. It must not be strictly what a tutor or a teacher says. So for you presenting and also suggesting that you understand it better as financial challenges, ACA, I will give you 100% mark if I'm marking you. So thank you for that worthy note. So there's no hard and fast rule. Just know that there are 6 layers, and whatever you understand by the 6 layers, please use the headers and you get the mark. The only way you'll be penalized by the examiner is for you to quote him verbatim. Number 1, you say use of data and information. Don't do that. You'll be marked down. Number 2, you say professional tools. Don't do that in the exam. Number 3, you say analytical skills. Don't do that. Number 4, you say issues and options. No, don't do that. The examiner is using that in his Pathfinder to mark you. So use your own words based on the case, how you understand it. So not to overflog your answer, you are very correct. Financial challenges and consideration. Please go ahead. Excellent. I hope you are okay with that.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Please, thank you for that question. Please feel free to interject if you have something so that you don't forget it at the end, or take notes.
My pleasure, sir.
All right. So please feel free to interject if you have anything to contribute or you don't want to forget at the end. And if at the end of the lecture or before the end of the lecture you forget, please write it down. Write all your questions down so that we can take them. But if you raise your hand, I'll also halt to take your questions. Okay, so let's use ACA Mohammed's words. So financial challenges and consideration. The first financial challenge we spoke about is the decrease or the declining profit margin, and also the net income or net bottom line margin. So we talked about the reference to it, which is Appendix 2. So the second challenge is looking at the industry mean for return on equity, and also the industry mean for liquidity and activity ratios and gearing. You can see that in Appendix 2, all the financial metrics are performing under the industry standards, which is a challenge. It's a financial challenge for Ice Age. So you have picked another point in that. Then the third point, C. So please try and be numbering your points. Don't just write blankly. Number your points appropriately. So in the context of a struggling economy, Ice Age is seeing substantially increasing payables and receivables. So what are you saying here? You are saying that they are trying to extend credit, payment terms, and all that. But inventory is also growing, and it shows that they are stockpiling their inventory or raw materials, finished goods in anticipation of future demand to mitigate supply disruptions. So despite this, you are considering them. So this is a consideration C, that they may be doing well, planning for economic difficulties, balancing operational needs and financial constraint. So in challenges and consideration, you are talking positive and you're also talking negative. You are talking for and you're talking against. Just be able to convince the examiner with your points. based on what you are saying. So the fourth point we talk about is decrease in gross margin from this amount to this amount. You can see the decline. It has eroded the benefits of gross profit. Additionally, finance cost went by 100%. Higher tax expense has further strained profitability. So you see that the inability to convert gross profit gains into stronger operating and net profit highlights the need to reduce operational costs and improve financial management in the challenges the company is currently facing. Okay, so I added another point by saying high gearing, looking at the debt to equity ratio standing at 60.7%, indicates that the company relies significantly on debt financing. And if you look at the industry average, it's lower than this. So you also highlight a challenge based on the information or your calculation provided. So given the already substantial debt burden and high cost of existing finance, further borrowing could strain. So you see, you are speaking another disadvantage to debt borrowing, because currently their debt to equity is high. So you're already addressing the requirement expressly. Also, the falling return on equity shows that shareholders' funds are dropping. The ROE was 1.09 in 2023, but dropped to 0.46. And net profit also dropped by 57%. So shareholders' value is eroding significantly. It will impact their confidence in the company's stock attractiveness. So this decline, you should be able to speak to it, that even though they reported high revenue and gross profit, their operational costs and financial pressures is very high, because shareholders, what they depend on is the dividends. And if their dividends and profitability is eroding, then what's the essence of buying shares or continuing as shareholders in the company? So I gave you 6 points under financial challenges and considerations, just like A.C. Mohammed has said. So you speak to that in that section. But I will also warn you that in data analysis, if the data they ask you to provide in requirement 2 or requirement 1 is not financial challenges, please change it to another acronym that speaks to that requirement. If it is model challenge or the challenge with that model, write your header like that. Write it in a way you understand. Don't cram. Don't be a robot. Just write it the way you understand, but make sure the headers and subheaders are there so that you can gain and earn your marks. Okay, so let's look at ethical issues. Ethical issues are your professional skepticism and the issues you found out in the report. Ethical issues. The first thing in the report is that you see that the financial statements are not audited, which is an ethical issue, and you are skeptical about it. Once external auditors have not provided their independent review of the financial statements, then you cannot validly take or seriously make decision on those financial statements. So that's an ethical issue. You have 1 superior mark. Number 2, you will see that from the exhibits, there is a point, a place in exhibit 2 where they refuse to provide or are arguing with external auditors, which is an issue, is an ethical issue. They were arguing with external auditors. Let me show you the requirements. Now, you will see in this first paragraph in exhibit 2, the finance director said to your partner, Tola Daudu, he said, the figures in these financial statements are unaudited. Take note of that. But I'm of the view that they will give you strong indication of our financial performance, position, and cash flow for the years presented. There has been unresolved issue with auditors. You see? It's an ethical issue since the last reporting period. And at this time, I'm of the view that we can get the audit carried out as soon as the auditors agree to see things our way. You can see that they are even forcing the auditors to do what they want, which is a compliance issue. You can't force external auditors or internal auditors to do what you want. It has to be based on standard. So it's an ethical issue, which is part of your critical analysis. You can call it another thing here, ethical issue, critical analysis, whatever acronym you understand this area, just speak to 4. So the first one is the issue of the unaudited financial statements. Number 2, you're picking a point by saying unresolved issues with external auditors stemming from disagreements over audit findings or accounting treatments. I'll pick another point. Perceived lack of integrity in the management, in IAML's management, characterized by issues like falling quality concerns with suppliers. So for you to have a standard cost for materials and you went for a cheaper product shows that you have quality issues and your integrity is jeopardized. So for example, the raw material to produce a drug, the standard drug or the raw material to produce chloroquine is 170. But you now went to get substandard drug materials for 100 naira. Now that is a threat to life because these are drugs people will take. In manufacturing, IAML is in fact, it's not just an ethical issue. It's a serious issue to the human race. It's a threat to the human race. It's a big risk. So quality issues below standards, approved standards, international and local, is an issue. Also, an issue which is vertical is the minimum wage they refuse to adhere to, misleading financial practices, which leads to undermining trust and reliability. So there are many ethical issues you could speak about. You see that relationship with customers has been strained. They say they will provide assistance support. They didn't provide it. It's an ethical issue. Suppliers hesitate to engage due to reliability concerns. Bankers who view the company will not even want to borrow them money, saying that the company is risky to do business with. The general public also reading all these financial statements of IAML may not want to do business with them. So they have a lot of ethical issues they need to address. You see, we packed all of them in one. There are many points here, but to pick one point comfortably, you can merge them in one or separate them. The fourth one I talk about is the possibility of information held by IAML's management. It's evident from the unresolved issues with auditors and the unaudited financial statement. If management is reluctant to provide information, how will the external auditors work? So take note of these concerns, and they also speak to your doubt to the accuracy and completeness of financial data. So we spoke to 4 issues which are critical, and you could use any header for them. ACA Mohammed, do you have any header, a special header for this number 5 parameter? Do you want to give us a header apart from critical analysis? Do you want to call it another thing?
On critical analysis. Do you mean on critical analysis?
Yes, critical analysis. Do you want to call it another? Do you have a synonym for it?
Oh, network is bad. Network is bad. Do you mean on critical analysis?
Yes, I meant critical analysis. If you have another synonym for it.
No, not really, sir. Not really, sir. I will develop. I will come up with something.
Okay, that's fine. Just I'm saying that just use what you understand and let it be under that header. That's good.
Not really, but eventually, I will definitely come with something.
Okay, that's fine. Just do as you understand, and it will help a lot. All right, so let's move to the next. Next requirement. Okay, so let's move to the last section so that we can begin to round up. All right, so the last number 6 issue we're talking about is risk assessment. You want to evaluate the company's performance, and you want to judge in the area of positive or negative risk of the company. So that's why I call this 6th and last parameter, risk assessment. So you're looking at the company's revenue, both from the growth perspective and inflation. So you are saying the company has done well since the revenue shows a significant increase. And also from the inflation, it has shown that the figures and the price of goods has boosted the nominal value of revenue. So in assessing the revenue performance, you are saying that the company did well and they should sustain this performance in your recommendation. So based on positive risk assessment, you are speaking to the fact that the company increased business by key customers, and the inflation also helped to boost the revenue growth. The second parameter you should pick is about the gross profit, which also indicates positive. The growth also shows that despite operation challenges, cost of sales was brought under control, because the gross profit is a product of a reduction from cost of sales. So you can see that the company did well in that parameter also. Now we'll now talk about the third parameter, which is a decline in the operating profit. Shows that despite the rise in gross profit, admin and distribution costs outpaced the growth in gross profit. So you see there's a risk here negatively. You are assessing and judging that based on your evaluation, the gross profit, the operating profit was eroded by admin and distribution costs. So in the medium term, suggest that they have to employ cost control measures to address this downward trend. Similarly, net profit also decreased. It was impacted by finance costs and tax expense. So revenue and gross profit were okay, but operating profits and profit before and after tax were highly impacted. So there is need for efficient management in these areas to reverse the downward trend in profitability. So the issue is profitability. There is risk in profitability. Evaluating the performance, revenue and gross profit is positive, but from operating profit to pre-tax and after-tax profit, there was a downward trend based on our judgment. And number 4, we talk about the recent performance and the decline in accounts receivable, that's their debtors, the impairment of receivables, the account payable, they've not been able to pay for over 4 months, the inventory holding period. So looking at these factors, if you look at the increase in, we spoke about it as a subheader under point 4, you can see that the rise in accounts receivable shows a risk in delayed payments, which could lead to bad debts. Take note of that. Possible impairments of receivables, the same thing about bad debts we spoke to. Payable increase, they will risk not even getting supplies and halt production. That's the risk of not paying your suppliers on time. They will cut short your supplies, which will affect productions and operations. Inventory is also an issue, a big risk here. Stockpiling and difficulty of selling your inventory. You tie up your capital, which could lead to obsolete inventory if your demand expectation are not met. So based on this 4th point, we're able to establish 4 facts on your accounts receivable increasing, the impairment of your receivables, payables increase, and also inventory increase. So you pick one solid mark from here. Very important. Okay, so let's conclude. We've taken so much time. Now, there are many things to conclude on, but let's take 4 valid ones. The first one is about the slight revenue trend observed. So despite challenges, you notice that this positive indicator culminated in growth and resilience. They were able to bounce back despite the challenges. So they were resilient in revenue. So that's your good conclusion. Also, the trend in gross and net profit reveal a substantial but variable performance. Your second conclusion. The third one is you conclude on account receivables, escalation of credit terms or potential issues with collections and leading to impairment, which is bad debts. Number 4, you speak to the sources of finance. If it's equity finance, it may lead to loss of control, advantage, and making it less attractive. Sales and leaseback or operating lease could lead to immediate cash without affecting gearing, but won't address long-term financing need. Invoice discounting and debt factoring offer short-term liquidity solutions, but may incur higher costs and impact cash flow if not properly managed. So each of these options have their trade-offs. They have their positives and they have their negatives. So it's the onus of management to choose which one works for them, and we'll recommend which one we feel it's best or we feel best suits the company. So let's carry out our recommendations now based on our conclusion. So for the current and potential providers of funds, we recommend um, based on their performance in revenue and gross profit that they should invest in Ice Age. Ice Age is it's a candidate for investment. Looking at their performance based on those two parameters, we recommend that they should work on their costs and areas they need improvement in operational performance, they should work on it. So their positive revenue growth and strong operational margins based on gross profit margins shows the potential for investment. So we recommend that current and potential providers of funds should invest in Ice Age. Number two, they must address profitability percentages by reassessing and optimizing cost structure. So the cost structure and pricing strategy should be optimized based on this our recommendation. Number one, implement rigorous cost control. Number two, based on customer demand, they should perform more research, market research to understand customer needs and tailor their services there appropriately. That's your number two recommendation. Your sub number two. Then sub number three, the issue of staff turnover. It is recommended that they should invest in professional development of their staff, implement effective HR strategies and initiative to reduce that turnover of people leaving the company. So you've given three recommendations under a subheader to address this cost structure. Then number three, you talked about recommendation of stringent cost control, especially reducing your current liabilities and increasing your current assets, which is your working capital. How should they do that? They should implement robust inventory management system, reduce overstocking and stockouts, ensure there's credit control procedure to accelerate receivables collection, have a credit control policy, credit policy to help that, negotiate favorable terms with suppliers to extend payables without compromising their relationship, and also regular monitoring of working capital metrics, the current assets, which involves inventory, receivables, cash, and short-term credits, short-term deposits, which is very important. Take note of that. You should monitor this. You also recommend, lastly, that Ice Age should implement budgets as a critical tool and adhere to the budgets. There was no place in the exhibit that speaks to budget allocation. So we are recommending that we should see budgets and comparing actual with budgeted. Let's see the variance, and also controls in the area of budgets is part of our recommendation to mitigate these cost issues, to help strategic alignment and also financial discipline in the company. So these are the areas we've made our recommendations. And after you've done that, you sign off the document as Maja Okpara. Don't forget you are Maja Okpara, not Tola Daudu, who is your partner. You are submitting to Tola Daudu, the partner, but you are the person writing the report. Tola Daudu is just a reviewer or your boss. Take note of that. So before I start taking questions, let me run through the cover page. We didn't talk about that. The cover page. So the cover page, we know, is an external report. This is our letter-headed, Dawodu and Co. The report is addressed to the Board of Directors of Ice Age. Then we summarize requirement 1 and 2 as the report header. Requirement 1 is a value chain analysis of Ice Age using Porter's model and an evaluation of the financial situation of the company. Simple. You summarize requirement 1 and 2. Prepared by Adipo Muta, who you are. So some people will put Daudu and Daudu. You won't be penalized, but don't put Tola Daudu. If you say Daudu and Daudu, fine. But I prefer who you are in the exam and your designation. So you put the date, then disclaimer. So like Chairlady asks, must you put this disclaimer as a header? You don't need to put it. So once anybody reads this report, this line item, the report is prepared for the board of Ice Age and for their use. We will accept only, they already know is a disclaimer, but I like to put it there to earn my marks fully. So let's go to the executive summary. We have a lot to summarize. So the first thing I must address is the mistake of writing your executive summary more than 2 pages. ACAs, please don't make that mistake. Stay with 2 pages maximum. Please, if you can write 1 page, if it's possible, please write 1 page executive summary. Why? Because you have already spoken a lot in the discussion. So executive summary is a summary of your discussion. Please take note of it. If you can write 1 page, fantastic. But don't go beyond 2 pages. I beg you, you will be penalized. The answer script is big enough. Write only 2 pages, and the examiner is very clear on that in the study pack. Don't do 3 pages. Okay, so let's introduce the executive summary. And the introduction and your method of analysis shouldn't be long. It should be very short, so that you can have time to discuss the five points to pick your 10 marks from requirement 1 and 2. So look at how I structured my own introduction. I said the report is aimed at analyzing the value chain of the business and operational strengths and weakness of Ice Age. Requirement 2, I spoke by saying an analysis of the financial situation, advising on possible sources of obtaining finance with reasons for and against each source of finance. So I've introduced the course or the report. And I talked about the method of analysis include ratio, trend, industry, which we used in the appendix. I will talk about data analysis using Porter's value chain model. All the calculations are found in the appendices. Simple, in 2 lines. We'll now say our assumption, or my assumption, is that Ice Age is still growing. Don't forget, in your life cycle model, as discussed expressly in the case study material, you see that the life cycle of a business, we start from the starting or beginning stage, growing stage, maturity stage, and also the decline stage. Okay, please go ahead. Somebody is saying something? Is somebody asking a question? Oh, okay. I thought I had something. Okay, so my assumption based on what I evaluated the financial statements of Ice Age is that Ice Age is still growing. It has not matured yet. Because if you look at the revenue and the gross profit, I will say that the company is growing. If they can cut their costs, they will grow very high. Indicators where a company is maturing is where revenue is beginning to decline. It shows that they've plateaued or they've reached their peak. Then when they begin to decline, you see that revenue is dropping drastically. They are at the decline stage. But based on my evaluation of Ice Age's financials, revenue and gross profit is okay, shows that they can grow further than that if mitigants and cost control measures are put in place. That's what I assumed by saying it's in the growing stage of its life cycle. So let's talk about requirement 1 summary. Value chain analysis of IAML. Just put a header like that in your executive summary. So let's pick 2 vital points. The business model of Ice Age revealed critical concerns in procurement, operational efficiencies, customer management, emphasizing issues with supplier reliability, material quality, workforce, and distribution. Simple. You've summarized what you found out in requirement 1 using the primary activity and the support activity. Number 2, you're saying external factors like economic conditions, regulatory changes, and market trends can greatly influence IAML's performance if some mitigants are put in place. So you've talked about 2 points here and you pick 2 marks. So let's conclude and recommend. So everything you should speak to is 10 points here on 10 lines. Because requirement 1 is 10 marks, executive summary requirement 2 is 10 marks. So we are concluding that effective cash flow and liquidity management are vital for IAML to meet short-term obligations, invest in resources, and sustain operational stability and growth. We are concluding on that. Favorable conditions can enhance ice age's growth, while downturn and strict regulations may worsen challenges. So proactive management is key to success. Your conclusion. The next thing is economic downturns and strict regulations could worsen their financial challenge. So they need to adapt. Aside proactive measures, they also need to adapt to this challenge. They should be resilient to bounce back when the economy hits the company hard. So you are concluding also that PEST tool and SWOT could be used to understand ice age external environment. Don't forget Porter's model addresses only internal environment, which talks about the primary activity and the support activity. All those are speaking to the internal environment of the company. So you are concluding that the PEST tool and SWOT could address external issues, which also impacts the business. Every business is bedeviled by internal or external issues, not just internal. So you are concluding on that. So let's recommend. Our recommendation is that a customer relationship management should streamline customer data interaction and feedback at IML, looking at the issues they have with customer and after sales support that they are not meeting their obligations. So this CRM system will help them with adequate data interaction and also feedback so that they can ameliorate and resolve all issues that have to do with customer dissatisfaction. The second point is they should enhance their cash flow and liquidity by detailed forecasting, budgeting, and cash management practices. They should include also optimizing their receivables and payables. So you can see you've stated recommendation on how they should carry it out. Implement CRM to do this. And you also say enhance cash flow management by doing this. You can't just state the recommendation. How should they carry out the recommendation? Take note of that. ISH should strengthen supplier relationship by, so this is how they do it, clear communication, agreeing on best pricing, negotiating prices, payment conditions, and delivery schedules. We have given them how to go about that. Okay, number 4, to improve sales or revenue, IML should consider exploring untapped markets. Another recommendation, they should consider untapped markets. Take note of that. By conducting research to identify potential opportunities and emerging trends. Number 6, using the value output or value chain, they could also identify and minimize weakness. That model is good. So you are recommending that they should ensure its implementation is not just applying a model. Implement what you found from the inbound logistics to the after sales services and address their challenges. You are recommending that model should be used to minimize their weaknesses by ensuring that all the findings from that model are implemented. You see, you have 5. I gave you 6. They should also regularly use PEST tool to monitor and adapt to economic, regulatory, and market changes to better anticipate their impact on operations and strategies. So 4 is okay for your recommendations and your conclusions to pick your 10 marks from here. So we are done with requirement 1 summary. We spoke about requirement 1 in the last class. So let's look at requirement 2 we just spoke about today. So from the financial situation and analysis of ICE age, and also the financing option open to the company, we want to speak to the slight revenue growth indicates resilience and a positive sign of market expansion despite the challenges. So we are concluding on that. Now on the financing issue, equity financing risk control loss, they may lose control. Sales and leaseback provide short-term cash financing without affecting gearing, while invoicing, discounting, and debt factoring offer liquidity but may increase cost. So you can see we have summarized financing option and we summarize the financial situation based on their revenue parameter on these 2 points. So if you want to see the detail of this, the examiner or the client will go to your body of report to look at detail. So don't forget, your executive summary is a snapshot of your discussion, is a snapshot. Don't be elaborate in your executive summary. Just pick the salient point and let them understand what you want to talk about in the discussion. So let's conclude. Gross profit has risen, indicating improved revenue and cost control. That is cost of sales control. But the significant decline in net profit points to issues in operating efficiency and cost management. You see, you have spoken to a conclusion on the issue of costs. Rising account receivables is a conclusion, and payables. Increase in inventory also is an issue. It poses future growth opportunities and it can hamper sales. It can cause sales challenges. Each option for financing present trade-offs, which is positive or negative, requires careful evaluation to align with their financial strategy and operational needs. Take note of this, each option, financing option. They're concluding on that. The revenue signals potentials for future improvement. So they should improve on this revenue you spoke about. Take note of it. They should improve on revenue. You are not recommending, but you are saying provided that operational and financial strategies are effectively managed. You've not said how, but you are concluding that if they manage their operational and financial strategies well, they will be able to enhance profitability and stabilize cash flow. Is your conclusion on this? So there are two different points from what you've spoken about, the slight growth in revenue here. So take note of that. So we've spoken to 4 conclusions, and let's finally recommend. We're recommending that the current and potential fund providers should note that ICE Age positive revenue trend indicates that the market is growing and there's expansion potential. So they should invest. You are recommending they invest. ICE Age is viable and profitable. ICE Age should optimize cost, enhance market strategies. So by doing this, they will be able to improve profitability. To address declining demand and staff turnover, the company should invest in market research and employee retention. So you've recommended how they should address the issue of turnover and also cost cutting. To address this issue of inventory, receivables, and payables, they should ensure they boost liquidity and efficiency in their collections and also payment. Regular monitoring is essential. That's how they should be able to address this challenge of their inventory and speed up receivables. We are also recommending that they should adhere strictly to comprehensive budgets as a critical tool for self-monitoring and control to ensure financial discipline and strategic alignment. So you can see we are within our 2-page allocation. So please don't go more than 2 pages. As you are planning your write-up, just have it at the back of your mind. Your executive summary is 2 pages because those are the first things the examiner sees. But that's the last thing the candidate is writing. Take note of it. Now, by way of introduction, after you've done your executive summary, you want to pick 4 marks from this introduction page. Don't forget this introduction page and background is 4 marks. So it's just copy and paste. You just copy. The aim is the same thing. The method of analysis is the same thing. Then you're talking of your skepticism, which you've spoken about. The financial statements are not audited. Absence of critical documents. You don't have cash flow, no projected cash flow, no financial disclosures, and no other comprehensive income. You pick 2 marks for this. Then this report outline is also 1 mark. Don't forget, it's 1 mark. So after you finish writing your report, just number the pages. The cover page is here. Executive summary is this. Introduction is this, like that. Follow this format to pick 1 mark. Fast, fast, fast. Then the background of the study, you just state it is from the exhibits. ICE Age was founded in this year, blah, 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 blah. This is what they are. This is where they are. And the scope and the limitation is the same thing here, just to rewrite it. Why? Here is just 2 marks, and this one too is 2 marks. Simple. You pick 4 marks here, and you are good to go. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is 9:40. We spent approximately 1 hour, 30 minutes or 35 minutes, and I will take your questions as I stop here. So please, if you have questions, raise your hand and let us address them one by one. Okay, I can see Charlie's hands up. You're welcome, Charlie. Finally, I've been seen on the WhatsApp platform that you had network challenges. Thanks to ACA Zakaria for giving us the idea of recording this meeting. So we will get to listen to it again and again and again on our YouTube page. Okay, go ahead, Charlie. Okay, she's still there. Yes. Charlie, please, let's go.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good
Please,
evening.
my question is about this ethical and other commercial considerations. Because I learned that this particular parameter, this ethical and other commercial considerations, takes 10 marks of the case study. And I also learned that it is under requirement 6. So now that we're having this ethical or challenges and considerations, is it the same thing with this ethical and other commercial considerations? That is my question one, sir. Then second question is that after the report, I'm thinking that we should have maybe a closing remark before our name and signature. Like something like maybe this report is being prepared based on the information provided. All details, analysis have been carried out. If more information is provided, something like that. So that is what I'm thinking. Then lastly, under the cover page, how as the subject of our report, not do a repetition of words. You have to change, you have to rephrase the.
Sorry, you are breaking, Charlie. You are breaking. I guess it's the network. Can you hear us, Charlie? Can you hear me?
On this issue.
Sorry, I lost you. I lost you at the cover page. You said something about the cover page. Can you come again?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you, Charlie. I guess this is network. Charlie, can you hear me? I believe her network is a bit down. Okay, let's take another question. If we have Charlie back, we'll take Charlie's final question. Do we have any other person? Any other person wants to ask a question before I address Charlie's question, even though I didn't hear? Yes, okay, I can hear you now. You were breaking. I believe your network had issues. Okay, can you go back to the question on the cover page? I didn't catch that cover page. What did you say about the cover page? I think network is challenging today. Okay, maybe you type it on the comment section. Let me type it on the comment section. Let me see. Type it in the chat box. The cover page question, type it in the chat box. I will address it. Okay, so let me share my screen on the parameter of those two parameters she talked about. So the identification on issues and options, you said, has more marks than, or the identification of professional skepticism and ethics has more marks than identification of issues and options. Well, I don't know if they have more marks than the other, but what I know is based on the examiner's format in his case study material, they have equal marks depending on the points and the achievement you provide. So ethical issues are critical actually to the exams, but you don't get more than 4 marks in their discussion. Then identifying issues and options, which are financial challenges or non-financial challenges and considerations, are also 4 marks. So where you merge those issues together, okay, she's not even on she just came on, no problem. The call is recorded, so she can listen to it again. All right, I'll come to your question, ACA Mohammed. Okay, so Chair Lady, let me listen to you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so please, can you go back to that cover page? What did you say about the cover page?
I said that cover page, like the topic or subject of the report.
Yes.
So I learned that you're not supposed to use the same words that were
Okay, the same words
financial
that you
statement
use for the
analysis
report.
or whatever. That maybe you can use something like report on financial statement analysis and evaluation of strategic business opportunities. Something like that. Can we just use it like that?
Okay, I get the question now. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so let me start. Let me go back to the question of application of professional skepticism and issues and options or challenges and considerations. So, if you want to merge these two challenges and considerations together with professional skepticism and ethics, is fine. If that's your own technique, I agree with that. You can merge them together. Just understand that in each requirement, you should speak to the challenges the company is facing and also the ethical issues they are also having in the case. So if you want to merge them, it's fine. But none of those parameters or layers have superior marks. I'm not sure the ethical issues have superior marks to the challenges. It just depends on your achievement. There are 4 layers of achievement. If you provide 4 points, valid points, you have superior achievement. If you provide 3 points, you have competent achievement under each layer. Then you have below competent achievement with 2 points. Then we have very low competent achievement with 1 point. Then it's void with 0 point. So I believe they both have 4 equal marks based on the study text and his Pathfinder. Ethical issues are critical, of course, but you don't earn more than 4 marks with the challenges and options. So if you match both of them and discuss them, you have 8 marks. So I believe I've answered your question, and if I've not, please get me back. Okay, so now let me go to the cover page and look at. Sorry, what did you say, Charlie? Did come again?
I'm talking about the closing remark of the report.
Okay, I'll come to that. Closing remark. I'll come to that. Closing remark of the report. Okay, so look at the cover page. Now you see that what I report on is a value chain analysis of Ice Age using Porter's model. So that's my summary of requirement 1. Then I said an evaluation of the financial situation of the company, requirement 2. So whatever headers you want to use, just make sure it captures the subject of requirement 1 and 2, however you want to summarize it. So there's no hard and fast rule. Any way you want to explain what the report on, this report is on just requirement 1 and 2. So if it doesn't depict requirement 1 and 2, then you're going to confuse your examiner. So that's just my my own opinion or my thoughts on this report on. So any way you want to speak or write it, just make sure somebody that will read it understands you are talking about requirement 1 and 2. That's all. So there's no hard and fast rule. Like I said, value chain analysis, I'm talking of requirement 1. Then I said evaluation of financial situation, requirement 2. So I match them by saying and. So and is the junction point or the conjunction of both of them. Value chain and evaluation of the financial situation. That's all. I hope that's clear. Hello, child lady. I hope you got that. Maybe she's off network. Okay, sorry, ACA Mohammed, I'm coming back to you. Okay, so, okay, that's nice. I had that. Okay, so on the closing remark, why I don't put closing remark is because based on the examiner's Pathfinders, you see that he doesn't really recommend closing remark. So let me open the examiner's Pathfinder so that we can look at that critically. I don't normally use closing remarks because what is his format is what I prefer to use. But that doesn't mean it's wrong if you use a closing remark. It just shows that maybe you are structurally closing your report very, very, very succinctly and organized. So let's look at Chialidi's question in the light of the examiner's Pathfinder. Now, just open the Pathfinder verbatim. Okay, so look at his additional information here. You see what he said? He said report structure, sufficient appropriate headings, appropriate use of paragraphs and sentences. That's in the main report. He now said it's legible, so your handwriting should be clear. You should be able to read it. He now said correctly numbered your pages. It's part of the structure. He now said relevant disclaimer, reporting style and language, which is in your cover page. Suitable language for the board. He now said tactical comments, tactical and ethical comments, which is in your requirement, your layer number 5, which is critical issues. I call it critical issues. Acceptable spelling and punctuation. So from this is structure. There is nowhere I saw he said you should provide conclusion. All those are tutors and other lecturers' suggestions. You see, one thing with me is I like to stick to the examiner's format, because the examiner's format is where I earn my marks from, not people's suggestion. Fine, a tutor can suggest based on his experience which works. So if the conclusion or closing remark of the report, will it earn new mark? I've not seen it anywhere that maybe it gives somebody mark. Look at this place. He said no unnecessary immaterial detail. So anything that will waste your time, that will not earn you mark, please avoid it, because 4 hours is not enough for you. But if you will conclude or provide closing remark in the report after your recommendation and conclusion before providing your signature, and it will waste your time, fine. But I don't see any value or mark based on the examiner's report structure. I just opened the Pathfinder now. You can see the Pathfinder ahead. I'm quoting the examiner verbatim, and I didn't see closing remark. But if you go to this structure, look at recommendations, evaluative skills and judgment, things to write. Look at conclusions, applying professional skepticism. This is what will get me the marks. That's why I like to focus on what the examiner wants. You see, if you decide to bring up your own suggestions or what a tutor said, is it in the Pathfinder? Is it in what the examiner wants? That's the question I ask. I try to stick to the examiner. So fine, I will not condemn anybody that is using closing remarks in his report. It's good. If any tutor suggests that, it's okay. If you have time, please do it. But I may not do it because I didn't see it in the exam. But it doesn't mean it's wrong. So get me correctly. It doesn't mean it's wrong. So you can do it if it's brief. Just conclude on what you said, maybe requirement 1 and 2, fine. But personally, I won't do it. And I will not condemn any tutor or examiner or teacher that teaches it. So I believe that speaks to your question, Chialidi. Are you okay with my answer? Because ACM Mohammed's hand is up. Chialidi, okay. I believe she has...
Hello, sir.
Yes, ACM Mohammed, I can hear you.
Please, concerning the last question, I think Charlie put the question on the cover page concerning what is it called, the requirement, where she said some actually yes, concerning she was suggesting if she can use a particular phrase for the two requirements, where if I'm not mistaken, she made use of business opportunity. I I just want to come in and it's like where we say business opportunity. Mostly, business opportunity comes where the question has to do with requirement has to do with take over issues
Yes.
and the rest. Yes, that is what
Yes.
our own understanding.
Yes, I agree with
Because
you,
actually, I
AC
have a lot
Mohammed.
of
You are
people who
correct.
use business opportunity, and I believe that you using business opportunity in your fulfilling your requirements, it has to do with an over or merger and acquisition stuff like that. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes, correct. Correct, ACA. Very correct. Very correct.
Thank you very
So
much.
thank you for that clarification. Thank you for that clarification. So, chair lady, the requirement should be tailored towards the requirement. The subject of the report should be tailored towards the requirement, please. So don't cram a requirement and put the subject there. That's so in summary what ACA Mohammed is opining, and he's very correct. I agree with him. So in this situation, you can see I said the value chain and also evaluation of the financial situation. In summary, so using business opportunity or something that is not in the requirement may be off what the examiner asks you to do. So please stick with the examiner's requirement and not what you've seen in previous Pathfinders. Sorry, ACA Mohammed, sorry, your namesake
Hello,
sound has
sir.
been up. I apologize. Yes, Haji Mohammed
Yes,
Yakubu,
good
I can
evening,
hear you.
sir.
Please go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
All
Yeah.
right. Yeah, my own clarification has been addressed. It's issue of closing remark, firstly. Then,
Okay.
secondly is that we are to discuss all these skepticism, option, challenges on both the requirement, right? That's requirement 1 and 2.
Yes.
We are to discuss all
Yes.
these battle points. Then can we
Yes.
add any other thing that like can come off, like based on our own understanding? Can we like add any other thing?
Thank you very much for that question, ECA Yakubu. Thank you. Let me address you as ECA Yakubu. So this report format, like I said, if you look at the body of the report, is just a sample. There are many issues to talk about that were not talked about here. So let me give
Yes,
you
sir.
an example. Yeah, so let me give you an example. So for example, let's look at value chain analysis based on Porter's model. Now, if you look at this first point we want to pick based on inbound logistics, operations, outbound marketing, and sales, you could talk about inbound one, but you see we mix them together here. You could talk about inbound, pick a point, operations, pick a point, outbound, pick a point, marketing, pick a point, sales, pick a point. So how you present your data matters. You can talk about it in a different light from how you understand it than what I've talked about in this area. So you are saying, you are asking that, can you present it, or there are other points I didn't present here that you want to present? Sure. ACA, you must understand that there is no correct answer and there is no wrong answer. It depends on how you are able to convince the examiner. So if you provide your technique well and present your findings well, you will pass this paper. And you must not follow this format of the Pathfinder by numbering it 1, 2, 3, 4. If you are able to write straight down, there are some tutors that will say just write straight down. The only thing is make sure it's not tardy. Tardy in the sense that it's not disorganized. You are just writing, no paragraph, no stopping, no appropriate headers or subheaders. Fine. If you are tensed and maybe there is no time to put appropriate headers or subheaders without forgetting just make sure you are paragraphing each point one by one. And don't forget requirement 1 for the detailed points you should get is 24 points you should provide. Please provide 24 different points. Just be counting as you are writing, be counting, so that the examiner is very conscious of the marks. Me, I'm just conscious of the marks. So if you provide 24 different headers for requirement 1, 24 different paragraphs and headers for requirement 2, you pick the marks easily before your conclusion and your recommendation. So aside these points, yes, you can write extremely different from this point. So what this report is doing, or what this report provides, is a clue to what is in the exhibits and in the financial statements. Just make sure whatever you are providing as your answer is inside the exhibits, is applicable to the case, and is also in your calculations or appendices. Very simple. So this is just like I named the document, suggested solution. Is not the solution. So please, ACA, take note of that. This is not the solution. What I write and pass may not be what you write and pass. It's just a format and a structure. So look at the structure this way, that a human body, the head starts up. You see the head first, before the hand, then before the waist, then before the leg. So if you carry somebody's leg and put on the head, you know something is wrong with that person. Now, by the time the examiner begins to see your appendix at the beginning of your report, something is wrong. Then by the time he begins to see your executive summary at the end of the report, something is wrong. So you see, this structure will help you provide context to your report. So let me don't digress from answering your question. In answering your question, you are correct. Please, if you have valid points, and that is why I wished you wrote the mock exam. There are many things other ACAs wrote in the previous first mock that were not in my suggested solution, and it was correct. I looked at the exhibit, what they said or suggested in the body of the report was correct, but it was not in my suggested report, and they are marked correctly. Why? Because the answers are in the exhibit. So ACA Yakubu, I hope I've addressed or answered your question.
Yes, yes, sure. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, you're welcome. Someone else is raising his hand. Oh, okay, you are still the one. All right. Any other question, please? Charlie.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, please go ahead,
Sir,
ACA Mohammed. Yakubu, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. I'm beginning to see my mistakes. So all these points are not been addressed on my last date that I wrote this case study. Many points were not been addressed. Yes, fantastic. I just addressed my ratio analysis. That's all.
Fantastic.
Especially
so I like that. And our advice, please. What our advice, please, in the third mock exam, please write the mock exam. I want to mark it. I want to see how you perform in the exam. So please write the third mock exam. It's coming up on Saturday. I will suggest it.
Yes, sure. I will be part of it. Even this one, I joined the group lately, and I wasn't been informed about the first precinct. If not, I will have attempted.
Oh, good, fantastic. I like ACA Mohammed's spirit. He's following it very well.
Yes, and, I have to confess, though, I'm beginning to see the blunder that I made on the last that actually all these points have not been addressed. Yeah, just few of them. But thank God for the everything stuff. We appreciate.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. So, ACA Mohammed, Charlie, are you okay with my answer to your question?
Yes, I'm very much okay, sir. Danny, where are you? Come on, I have question, Danny.
Okay, Dami is muted. Dami, do you have any question? She's been having challenge connecting, so finally she has connected. Dami, we are waiting for your question. ACA Mohammed, are you okay also?
Yes, I'm okay.
Okay. Mohammed Saleh. ACA Mohammed Saleh, are you okay? Okay, so Mike has unmuted. All right, Mike, you want to speak?
Yeah, my question is that what I'm trying to get a clarity on is that the structures and the headers of the reports, are we going to have it often? Are we going to memorize it? That this is how the structure is the header.
Yes.
So you are picking it from the structure, and you are putting in your points on those headers individually.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. I like that.
The last night, I as a person, I just wrote the report, just wrote everything. without stating points, just like the header in capital letter alphabet. Then you now take it, the the points each of them, picking the point one after the other, having 4 points, going to 5 points, just like that. So I'm just saying it now. That's not what I did. What I did was a direct report. So if we are to go by
Good.
this, we need to have to memorize the outline. I will pick the header. Under the header, we start having our points. Start stating the points there.
Yes, excellent. So you have noticed where you have mistake, which is very correct. So if you look at my screen now, you see that requirement one, I put it in full bold letter. I'm trying to tell the examiner
Exactly.
that this is what I'm addressing. So requirement one states an analysis of value chain and blah, 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 blah. So under that
Well, as I
requirement
was
one, I
even
want to
writing, as I was
address.
writing, I was wondering, how is this them not going to mark this? Because
Thank
I myself,
you.
I was
Thank
wondering, how are they going to
you.
mark it?
Thank
And I thought
you.
that
You
this
get
thing
it now.
they are going to penalize. Yes, me, I was thinking that in a report, if you write it this way, they are going to penalize you. But now
No,
I
no,
can
no,
discover,
no.
I've seen that with this, he can pick his point and mark.
Yes, yes,
Mm.
yes. Very correct. Very correct. So you are very right. Like I said, the structure matters. And you see, if you look at the examiner's report in Pathfinder, he complains bitterly that people just write without a structure. And that is why you see
Mm.
this mock exams has come to help you. We still have like 3 more or 4 mocks before presim comes out. So please
Are
engage.
we, are
You
we,
see,
are
as
we
you
typing this
practice,
mock exam? Are we
no, no, no,
typing
you
it or you are
cannot
just
type. Oh.
writing it with pen?
No, 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 you cannot type. I'm the only one that is allowed to type, but you cannot type
Oh, okay, okay.
because it's
So
not a computer-based exams. You have to write with your handwriting. And one of the examiner's issues is legibility of the candidate's handwriting. Look at what he said here. Just look at my screen. You will see something
yeah,
here. He said in the main report, look at one point, legible. Did you see this legible? That means a lot of people,
yes,
their handwriting is not readable. So
okay.
one of the issues I have with one of the ACAs here is that your handwriting is a challenge. I have a lecturer friend, he's a doctor. He lectures in Dusema. He wrote case study 5 times. When he was complaining to me that how come he has not passed case study, and we wrote it together, but I passed my at first attempt with a very good score, 78. And in that diet, he scored
Hmm.
11. So he was asking me that, Awe, what did you do now? Me, I'm failing, and you are passing. So I say, okay, write a
Hmm.
report. Let me see. Did you know I struggled to read his report? I couldn't read
Wow.
it. I said, what did you write here? He said, this is financial. I say, this financial is looking like Greek now or Arabic. I can't understand this.
Wow.
So your handwriting is very necessary. And that's why I said your mock exam, write it with your hand. So that if I read
Okay.
it, I know what the examiner is thinking when he sees your handwriting. One ACA in the mock one exam, I told him, I said, you are going to fail with this handwriting. I cannot read it. I was blunt.
Hmm.
And he scored a very bad score. He scored less than 10. He scored less than 10
Less
in
than
that
10.
mock one.
Wow.
Yes. Because I couldn't read it. That's the truth. You see people scoring 5, 7, 8 in case study. You pissed the
Hmm.
examiner off. He couldn't understand what you were doing. So that is why we said write your mock in your handwriting. When I can move to computer based, by that time you guys will have qualified, inshallah. So no more. You guys will have is your succeeding students by God's grace that will be writing computer based. But for now, please use your handwritten report to submit. So I believe I've
Okay, sir.
addressed your question, Mr. Mike. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other question? It's already after 10. We are already late. I've kept you guys. Me too, I'm still in the office. No other question or any other question? Dami, Chairlady has been saying you should talk. You didn't talk. Oh, Dami, unmute and speak. Chairlady, Dami doesn't want to answer us today.
Fine, this is okay.
Maybe she's even asleep. Who knows? All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. This recording will be posted on our YouTube page so that you can go back to it and look at it. Then I will share the solution also on our YouTube page, this suggested solution for us to further look at it and practice. Then for us that submitted our scripts, we'll be getting our marked script with my comments and where you made mistakes and your score. You'll be getting it by tomorrow evening. Then also take note, mock exam 3 pre-scene will be released on Saturday by 9. On scene will be released on Tuesday next week by 6 p.m. Then I will expect your report by Saturday next week of the mock exam 3. Then we'll do our review
Is there any
class
way we
on
can
Sunday.
get the hard copy of this solution?
Yes, you'll get the soft copy. I'll share it on the page so you can go and print. You can use the soft copy. I'm sharing it after this call with you guys. I'll also share the recording on my YouTube page, Gabriel Josiah. So if you want to make reference to the recording, you can also go to my YouTube page and make reference to it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, sir.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you,
All right,
sir.
thank you, Charlie D. And do have a good and lovely night rest.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, you're welcome. You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.